This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
It's amazing what my students with special needs can accomplish. Their pride is priceless. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome back to two members of the Senate from Southside Virginia. I think the Dean, did we say, Senator Frank Ruff and Senator Bill Stanley. But thank both of you for being on This Week in Richmond. And right at the start, let me tell our viewers, we're talking on the day before the reconvene, but they'll be seeing this after the reconvene. So we won't be asking you to speculate on the results of everything that's coming before you on reconvene, but really a chance to talk about the session, the issues you worked on, the committees that you chaired, from general laws and technology to local government. And so the floor is wide open. And Senator Ruff, having served in the House and the Senate, we'll start with him, Senator Stanley,
Yes,
and then come to you.
I yield.
David, thank you for having us. We appreciate that.
Yes. What issue would you like to start off with as really an issue as you reflect back on the 59-day session that it was?
The workforce training issue, this is the third year in a row that I've carried that bill. And this year we were glad that the governor funded it in case it did pass, and it did pass. It changes the equation at the community college completely. For decades, we have funded the community colleges on degree-based courses only. And that's driven them away from workforce training type education. This year we'll be funding 2/3 of the cost of those certifiable training programs that are agreed upon. So instead of taking a machinist and running it for a 2-year program, we'll be able to do that program in a 16-week program. For a young person right out of high school, living at home, wanting to sleep late and party, a few hours a day education is not too bad. But for a 30-year-old with 1 or 2 dependents that's lost their job, they'll be bankrupt if they tried to go to school for 2 years. So this will get those folks back into the system and get them well trained for jobs that are there today, and we hope will be out there on the horizon in the next few years.
And those certificates that they'll be getting is really what industry wants, right?
They want independent certification. They don't want students getting A's. They want folks that have proven that they can do the job, and that can only be done by an independent certification. And it may be welders, it may be machinists, it may be people working in cybersecurity. There are a whole range of things that will be modified, what courses are available depending on what's needed in a particular region of the state.
Thank you. Senator Stanley?
Well, this year we always focus on workforce training, especially in Southside, trying to revive our economy. One of the other issues that I think is very important is rural health care reform, trying to make sure that we bring quality doctors in medicine to the people in the rural areas in Appalachia. You know, we've had the Medicaid expansion debate. The arguments have been 400,000 would be covered by that. Most of the people that we have in our area, a greater number and percentage, are already covered by Medicaid. But that doesn't equate to having quality medicine and having it administered. In our area, in Southside and Southwest Virginia, the average age of a primary care physician is 56 years old. So for every 2 doctors we lose to either relocation or retirement, we're not even getting 1 back, so we're shedding doctors. And a lot of times doctors are walking out of the med school with $250,000 in debt or more.
Yeah.
So what we've been trying to do in the legislation that I opposed this year that is on the governor's desk, and actually he signed it, is to try to bring those doctors back down into the area. One way is by making our med students in our universities in the Commonwealth of Virginia do their rotations in rural, underserved, and underprivileged areas, whether that's in the rural area or in an urban area, so they can have that kind of experience with that type of medicine. And also, those hospitals will have an opportunity to recruit them. That's an important thing. The other thing is we have a lot of nurse practitioners who are having a hard time right now getting doctors in a collaborative effort. One of my bills, which was also funded by our budget, was to allow telemedicine to be entered into the nurse practitioner program through a pilot program, which allows collaboration with doctors all over and throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia with nurse practitioners who usually are sitting in those rural areas. And the doctors that they have are maybe 50, 60 miles away, the collaborative effort. They can't have that instant contact with them. And sometimes it's even harder to get a doctor to sponsor them in that collaboration. So those were 2 important bills that I was lucky to have passed this year and signed by the governor.
The telemedicine, I guess, it's been used by veterans services, used by other doctors, but the unique part of what you're talking about now, the nurse practitioners will get pulled into that as well.
Nurse practitioners offer a very low-cost primary care availability to people in areas that otherwise doctors don't usually set up primary care shops. And so you can go in and have that primary care administered you by a nurse practitioner, but the nurse practitioner has to have a doctor sponsor and a collaborative effort. A lot of times there's that separation. Now we're bringing quality doctors in, and UVA will be helping with the pilot program. They have a great telemedicine program that's starting to expand. And if we can start as that as a gateway, then we can bring telemedicine on a larger scale into the rural areas, Appalachia, and the underserved and underprivileged areas that are going to bring those doctors that otherwise might be up in Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, Richmond, or UVA, right into the homes of people who otherwise could not make the trip to go see them. That's going to bring higher quality medicine at a lower cost, which will increase the outcomes for those that use it. So we're very excited about telemedicine. I think next step, and what I'm thinking about next year, is telepsych. We don't have enough psychiatrists and psychologists in rural areas. Again, it's the money factor. And so if we can use telemedicine to bring telemental health into the homes of those that need it in those areas that are not being served, that's going to be a bonus as well. So this is just a building block for expanding telemedicine throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Sounds excellent. That'll help in your region throughout Southside, and not just Southside, throughout the state.
Sure. Yeah, there are a lot of areas that are short on all sorts of health skills, particularly in the rural areas and inner cities. So I think we are in partnership with those folks in the inner city on those type issues. We spend a lot of time, I spend a lot of time particularly on the economic development things. The Go Virginia group came out the end of last summer with a plan that was generated by the business community of the state, how they could energize getting business folks involved in economic development rather than just waiting for government to do it. So we were very fortunate to have a couple of efforts that went through, and there's a little bit of horse trading right now in the process. We'll find out. We will have found out by the time this show airs how that ends up, but I think we'll be in pretty good condition. My part of that had communities working together in collaboration. If 2 counties got together and worked on an economic development project, if the investment was over $1 million and created at least 25 jobs, then up to half of the income tax that was generated from those jobs could come back to those localities for further economic development. And we think that's very important to counties that have struggled, not having the capacity to recruit well by themselves, not having the capacity to employ all the people that are needed for a particular job. So I think it's going to be a very positive thing. It will take a little time, but I think it'll be great.
So the issues that, as you said, the viewers will know about by the time they're seeing the show are issues about who's on the board and matters such as that. Am I right in thinking that there's evidence that both the administration and the legislature would like to see this in concept move forward? Or is that saying too much?
No, I think that's fair. That everybody wants it to move forward, but everybody has a little different slant on it, and we'll see. Some of it will get pushed off till next year, but for the most part, the structure will be created this year. But it's something that we'll build on as we go forward. It's something that Bill and I can talk about when we're before our boards of supervisors and chambers of commerce.
And I'm sure, again, whether that's Prince William and Fairfax or whether it's Southside or Southwest or any of the localities, that it would provide opportunities throughout the state. But I would think particularly in the more rural areas, that would be extremely helpful.
Very much so. You look at like a Buckingham and a Cumberland, together they only have fewer than 20,000 people. So if they don't have somebody to partner with, either with each other or with Prince Edward or in the Farmville area or up towards Charlottesville, then it becomes a very high hill to climb over.
And we're talking about also competing with North Carolina, something that Northern Virginia doesn't have to really do. Sometimes we hear cost to compete in scholastics in Northern Virginia to keep the best and the brightest teachers. We're competing on everyday basis, our localities are, with North Carolina and its counties to lure business into their areas. Sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not. I think a collaborative effort, again, with our areas kind of grouping up in larger mass is going to be a benefit, and having the resources and the tools to be competitive when you're fighting another state, to have a business come in and employ your people and put down roots and bring revenues to the area. So it's another tool in the toolbox that we need. Go Virginia is one of those very important things, and I think it spreads across many different topic areas, including infrastructure and education and innovation, in ways that we can do better, and especially in Southside. You know, I've lived all over the state of Virginia. My dad was a naval officer, so I always like to say that Southside and Southwest Virginia, with coal, tobacco, textile, and manufacturing, built Virginia. In 1978, when we moved to Northern Virginia, when my dad was deployed to the Pentagon, the #1 industry in Northern Virginia, believe it or not, was dairy. They had great dairy. That's the #1 industry. Now we've seen such a transformation where the jobs have gone up there, and we've lost jobs due to NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement, and CAFTA, the Central American Free Trade Agreement. We have to have something in our toolbox, as I said, to be competitive so that we can bring our region back economically as we are step by step, educating our workforce and allowing our children to stay here instead of having to leave to go find a job because those jobs aren't available after we educate them. I want our families to know that they can go visit their child across the street when they've grown, not across the state or across the country. And this Go Virginia will help with that.
And we are one commonwealth, and so there are different regions of the state need not be neglected. I was thinking of the example too of Grayson County and Carroll County with Galax in there.
Exactly.
I mean, right at a place where they could collaborate. I mean, Grayson does fine, Carroll does fine, but if they could work together on this and as you say, get some of that tax revenue back to help them in other initiatives, it'll be good.
They've done that, especially in education with Crossroads, and I know you've been there.
Yes.
And what a great innovative way of thinking outside the box to bring education and innovation together to try to grow small business and employ people in that area. They've been very aggressive. I'm very proud to serve that area. But that's the kind of thinking it's going to take to bring us back from what has been a long fall. I mean, think of it this way. Our unemployment in some areas is 3 times what the state average is. And at one time, we were the lowest unemployment. Just 20 years ago, we had the lowest unemployment, and where Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads would have been higher than ours. That's something to think about. When we think about, you say, regionalism, we need to work together as a Commonwealth, because sometimes in regionalism, and I see that more here than sometimes partisan politics, people and representatives in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads certainly think that they built Virginia, which I like to remind them they didn't, but also they need to know that a rising tide floats all ships. and that together we can make a better Virginia when all of our engines are firing, whether it be in the coal fields or South Side, Eastern Shore, or Northern Virginia.
I was explaining to a colleague recently who didn't know all the background about the Tobacco Commission and how that money has, over the years, has been helpful, and where some other states kind of used it up and balanced their budget a year or two, and then the money's gone. You both serve and work on that commission. Help our viewers around the state better understand the, you might say, the purpose of that commission and how it's doing also in helping in economic development.
Our new future chairman should speak first.
In the late 1990s, I think 99 was the first year, the General Assembly allotted half of the money coming in from the national settlement on smoking to go to the tobacco region. And we have used that to educate our young people. We offer scholarships, forgivable loans to folks that wanted to go to college that were not able to. So we've made big increases there. Every economic development issue that has come up in one of those counties or cities has some tobacco commission money in it. It funded, along with it funded the Mid-Atlantic Broadband, which is a backbone of getting the internet throughout the region. And that in turn brought Hewlett-Packard to Clarksville, brought Microsoft to Boynton, and that they're approaching $3 billion investment, B with a B, and that's and we would not have had that. So up and down the road, one job at a time. We've tried to create jobs. We've tried to educate our young people. We want them to stay in the region, but if they choose to leave the area, that's their choice. But we've offered some incentives for them to come back with the forgivable loans.
So beyond all that important work on economic development and medicine, better medicine in Southside and rural areas, before our time would get up, what are some other issues that either that you've worked on for years, or that as you look across the horizon and think about the 2017 session, that's something that you need to be working on or will be working on?
Well, one thing that we did mention before, that was the Research Alliance. Went with the governor down to Georgia back in the summer to look at what they've been doing over the last 25 years. And they have focused on commercialization of their research. So we put together a Research Alliance for Virginia, which gives bonuses for universities to work together for innovative things to attract research, not just for the fun of research, but research that would create jobs. And so I think that that's going to pay off in the long run. It will help in Northern Virginia particularly, but it will help at VCU with some efforts that have already been made with Microsoft and the Defense Department. It will get those things moving along a little faster to create jobs.
I think for me it's I-73, Interstate 73. As everybody knows, I'm Senator Interstate 73, connecting North Carolina, where they have I-73, South Carolina, 3 deep water ports, and also our port in Virginia, to the interior of the United States. Studies have shown that when we build that highway from the North Carolina line through the Roanoke Valley into the southwest part of the state, it's going to bring 53,000 permanent jobs to our region. It'll bring $900 million annually to our localities and increase tax revenue that we can spend on education, public safety, and the needs of our people at the local level. It's a game changer for Southside. It connects us, which is most important, to the global economy, and to make sure that we have that future economically that we need so badly. So that's going to be something I do it every year. There's a couple of bills that will be continuing in that direction always. And then workforce training, education, I think even at the elementary, middle school, and high school level for those certification programs in a way that offers children and young adults something other than college. If the college isn't meant for them, that's going to get them a good paying job.
With all the advantages of that interstate, not asking you to make the argument for the other side, but why is it opposed? What are the issues?
Well, I think the price tag certainly is not small. It's $4 billion, billion with a B, as he said. but it pays for itself in 10 years. So sometimes we have a hard time thinking that far away. The other thing is that right now the federal government, we still have hoops to jump through in terms of EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers before permitting can occur. But the other states are working together. I passed a law for an interstate compact where the states can work together, where Interstate 73 travels through, to get it built together, to strategize and to plan for the funding of the construction. So we're further along than we were, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But it's going to be a long process. But we're going to build it in our lifetime, and it's going to bring huge benefits. Think about it this way. Over the past 20 years, $10 billion has gone to Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads for new road and interstate highway construction. In that same 20 years, $900 million to our area. And most of it has been for 58 widening, Route 58 widening. So where we've seen the money for new construction for roads go, we've seen the jobs go as well. If we can bring that money back down in here, federal and state and local monies, I think what you'll see is that our unemployment rate will drop, our productivity and contributions will rise, and we will all be at the same level, no matter where we live here in the Commonwealth.
In the General Assembly, everybody has empathy for other people's, other areas' problems. And they place that in priority right below theirs.
Right.
So with the
Yes,
numbers in
right
Northern
below.
Virginia and Tidewater, we're always struggling to keep up our share, and it becomes a real problem for us.
But the benefit would not only be for the region, because I'm making the case for it, but the benefit, like it would benefit the entire Commonwealth, the region more directly, but it looks like it would.
Well, you're talking about bringing export and import of products internationally and intrastate through that part of the Commonwealth of Virginia that can then be distributed anywhere. I mean, you're talking about a portal right there and a window to the ocean and whether it be the Far East or Europe, or also to the interior of the United States. That's that global connectivity that we're going to need to be ahead of the game in the advanced manufacturing and in the new economy. And that's going to bring those advanced manufacturing jobs here, because those corporations are going to see that I have a conduit, a direct line to 4 different deep water ports to get my product out, and also to the interior to sell their product domestically. So it makes sense. Highway building and infrastructure is needed in the United States, and especially in the Commonwealth. New road building would be the real game changer for all of us throughout the Commonwealth.
Senator Ruff, what about your committee? You've been chairing General Laws and Technology. Issues on that committee that you see maybe that were carried over, ones that are going to be coming up next year?
Well, I guess as long as Senator Lucas represents Portsmouth, we'll be hearing about casinos. But we didn't carry anything over. We try to deal with things as appropriately as need be every year.
Right. And what about the Committee on Local Government?
This year we had, usually we're not always in the news, but we deal with local government issues that are important to those localities. This year I think the proffer bill was one of the largest issues that we had, which is to make sure that our local governments are not abusing proffers and becoming a quasi-partner in a developer's development and taking certain monies off the top that they can then use for projects that are unrelated to the development in the residential neighborhood that they're building. So I think that was an important issue. We had a lot of debate. It passed out of our committee and out of the Senate. The governor signed it. And so that was one issue. The other one is BVU, which most people throughout Virginia don't know about. But that is the utility down in Southwest Virginia that's had some corruption problems and some issues. So Senator Carrico, by reconfiguring the board, was hopefully removing any future lack of confidence that the public would have in the BVU authority in terms of providing electricity and utilities to those areas. So those were important issues this year. Next year, who knows? It's just a roulette wheel. Not to bring up casinos again, but you never know what's going to come across the old local government desk.
Right. Well, Senator Ruff, we appreciate all that you've done and your telling of yours about it. Senator Stanley, we thank you as well and wish you well, and we'll find a time later in the year as it gets closer to the 2017 session to have the two of you back on. You get here in Richmond for other meetings, so we look forward to having you back on before the 2017 session.
Thanks for having us. We enjoy it.
Be delighted to join you.
Even with me?
Even
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.